everyone, welcome to another Animation Friday, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly discuss some of my favorite couple animated shorts, meaning that these shorts involve in particular couples, and in particular romantic relationships. So I thought it would be interesting since I discussed some of my favorite animated couples a couple weeks ago. I thought I would kind of tie it back in a little here with some of my favorite shorts that revolve around couples. Now, the first one I wanted to briefly discuss is a Silly Symphony short that I think is very cute, and just very charming at the same time, and that is Peculiar Penguins. Oh yes, this one. There's just a lot of innocence to this short, especially since it involves animals, in particular penguins. And the way they're animated is just so cute. They're just like these little big fluffy penguins, just flopping around, and you feel like they actually walk like penguins walk, at least a little bit more so. And I like the fact that it's 2D animation because I feel like it showcases the penguin better than in 3D, like how some other studios try to make films about penguins and make them animated and make them 3D. So this sort of 2D form is sort of a nice way to showcase penguins as opposed to the 3D where I think it just looks a little ridiculous. But basically the short revolves around, you guessed it, two penguins who fall in love. And I like kind of how it displays this sort of like within the animal world setting, that like the way in which penguins sort of show affection for one another is again somewhat drifted from the human kingdom, but at the same time, they kind of have that male role where the male penguin basically, provides resources to the female penguin, and unfortunately she doesn't end up being appreciated initially by these resources, and you will see why once you choose to watch the short. And then it sort of goes from there, and there's like this obstacle that ends up coming in the way, and then the male penguin kind of comes in and makes everything all well again. Now, another thing that I find interesting about this short is that it has a certain amount of cutesiness along with the creativity, because there are some points where I do feel the animators really tried to play around with it and really tried to give this a very interesting approach when it comes to a story about penguins falling in love and having some weird, odd circumstances happening to them. And I think overall this one just did it in such a very, it's just so unbelievably adorable. Just the way that they showcase this whole short. It just has the right amount of cute, the right amount of innocent and charming, and it also has this real sense of creativity, I think, too, while still tying into, what penguins sort of do as an ultimate sort of expression for love. And usually from the male end, that is providing resources like food and to the female, and also protecting the female, which does end up happening within the short. Now, if you want to go debate racial politics, please go do, or excuse me, not racial politics, gender politics on this. You can go and watch and go argue somewhere else, because regardless of what you think when it comes to the sort of roles, that's sort of how the animal kingdom operates. And that's how the genders sort of interact with one another. And I liked how they made penguins seem like actual penguins who would, under these sort of circumstances, act, because again, they don't make them talk, they don't make them have any human characteristics. It's just purely animal, and I think it really works for a short like this. And it's nice to see something that's not really necessarily human, sort of, fall in love and have this little cutesy short dedicated to it. So I think it's adorable. I think it's just the right amount of cute. It doesn't overdo it like March of the Penguins, where it's like a full hour of penguins. It's only 10 minutes, and it's only a cartoon, really. Maybe 7 minutes, actually. Again, 10 minutes or less. So yeah, I think there's a lot to enjoy about it. It's simple, but it's good in how it approaches the material. Now, the next one I wanted to briefly discuss is a Minnie and Mickey Mouse short. I think this one is one of the more famous ones and one of the ones that I did not address and I thought would be perfect to incorporate for this list, and that is Ye Olden Days. I thought it was really cool how this short decided to put, out of all things, Minnie and Mickey into a medieval fairy tale setting. I think that works really well considering Disney's extensive library of fairy tales being based within European sort of folklore, and fairy tale stories. So I thought that was a very interesting choice. I also thought how and I found it sort of amusing too, how Goofy within the short is supposed to be the person that's sort of competing with Mickey when it comes to Minnie's affections. And we usually don't see that in a lot of shorts. Usually Goofy isn't trying to win over Minnie, but I thought it was interesting how this one decided to do that and also make Minnie's father Pete, or a Pete sort of look-alike. So yeah, I think some things are kind of mixed up here, but at the same time, I like sort of the change, and I like how sometimes Walt embraces the idea of just thinking outside the box sometimes. And I think with this one, it really worked to its advantage. But basically, the short revolves around Minnie being betrothed to Goofy and not wanting to be betrothed to Goofy. So, yeah, and that ultimately results in Mickey sort of stepping in and Minnie falling for Mickey, and hence a duel happening between Goofy and Mickey. Um, and the cool thing about this short is that it's entertaining throughout. It has this sort of catchy, cute intro, and there's actually a lot more singing than usual in this particular Disney short. It also has a lot of little slapstick moments here and there. And it just has this cheery, bright attitude. It doesn't try to take itself too seriously. And I think that's what really works to the short's advantage, as opposed to making this a serious confrontation, um, or making the aspects that result in confrontation not so over dramatic, but making them just a little bit goofy and over the top, I think works to the short's advantage, and it makes the short a whole lot more fun to watch. And yeah, I think really the short gives its audience ultimately what we would expect from these kinds of shorts, and it's really nice to see this kind of a short being, I think, well recognized, at least from the internet. Although I don't know. Last time I remember there was one that was posted that got over 4 million views, but I'm not sure if that has changed or not since I've looked it up just today, because I think the latest one that was posted only had a smaller amount of views. I'm not sure, but I remember this one being a fairly popular one. And I think it's one of the more entertaining ones, and one of the ones that I think works for the Minnie and Mickey relationship dynamic. And it's nice to see it sort of being put into this kind of fun, cute little fairy tale setting. So definitely a lot of fun. Now, the next one, and second to last one that I wanted to briefly talk about, is Donald's Dilemma. This one is a lot of fun. And this one revolves again around Donald Duck and Daisy Duck. And basically, what ends up happening within this short is that Donald ultimately loses his memory and he does not remember Daisy, but he gets this really funny ability, which I'm not going to spoil for my audience here because it's a treat. But basically, throughout the entire short, Daisy's trying to sort of get Donald's attention and sort of failing, and you sort of see her misery. It's so sad but so funny at the same time. And this one I felt was like a really good genuine Daisy and Donald Duck short, because usually when you see a Donald Duck and Daisy short, they're usually their relationship is not really at the center of the cartoon. Usually it either revolves around Donald messing up and having to go fix his own problem, or Chip and Dale, causing problems. It never really centers around Daisy all too much, or around Donald and Daisy's relationship. It's just sort of treated as a side effect, at least from the shorts that I've seen of them. So that's why I kind of excluded them from my couples list, because I felt like that there wasn't a whole lot to their relationship. But this short I thought was really well done. It was really cute. And I kind of like how Daisy sort of has that persistence to her, that she'll just keep going. She won't give up. I just found that so great. And she has her wants and her desires, and it's understandable that she sort of goes to those lengths, that you see what she ultimately does, or that she ultimately does within the short. So it is over the top at points. It is kind of silly, and it has a little bit of nonsensicalness to it, but I think it really works, and it's a lot of fun to watch, and I find it to be one of the more entertaining couple shorts, and I find it to be very, very cute and interesting in how it approached their relationship, which is something we usually, again, don't really see all too often in a lot of the Donald Duck shorts. So, well done! Now, the last one I wanted to mention is actually one that came out fairly recently. This one came out right, I guess it really was a part really of WreckIt Ralph. When that film hit theaters, this short played at the beginning. At least that's the way I experienced WreckIt Ralph, because when I was in the theater, this short played before the actual film. And I thought it was really cool how because it was a long time since I seen a short before a film. I only remember when I was a kid, maybe when I saw some Pixar film way back in the day, that they had a short before they showcased the feature-length feature film, and I was so happy to see a short again, because it kind of took me back to the day, and I also hope that they continue to make small little shorts as part of the feature-length presentation again. I don't think Disney did it again, actually. I don't think they did one for Frozen, as far as I can tell. But I think it would be nice to definitely return to this form and try to do some more short animated shorts, because I think animated shorts still can have a very nice effect onto the audience, and can get the audience, I think, invested into what ultimately ends up coming their way when the feature film sort of hits. And that's why I liked Pixar shorts, because again, even though they didn't really relate to necessarily the feature-length animated film, they still kind of gave you a sense of, how animation is done and, the sort of thought and creativity behind it. And I think there's a lot to appreciate when it comes to shorts. And I thought this one did a good job. And I think it did win some awards. So it seemed to be praised by the public, in particular critics. And that short is Paperman. Um, I like how this story in particular has a lot of heart. Um, and again, it's not that complicated. It's fairly simple. It's sort of a boy meets girl story. Um, but the way it showcases itself, I think, really has a lot of little cute little bits of creativity thrown in. And I really like how the animation is, you feel like they just have those, like, Disney eyes, that friendliness, that comfortingness to them. And I like the fact that it's a little bit more down to earth, and that it's just these two people who are just kind of going through life, and then they happen to sort of stumble upon each other, and then um, even though there's still there still are some obstacles, in particular on the male part, to try to get the female's attention, which you will see within the short. You ultimately see how they sort of end up together, and how sort of a certain amount of persistence um, ultimately leads you somewhere. Sort of similar to Daisy's circumstances, but again, not as probably not as extreme and not as over the top. I like how it just has this heartwarming feel to it. There's not a it's not a huge amount of complexity. It's not like, it's trying to throw in deep ideas. But I like how it just feels simple, and it feels like life, because sometimes life isn't complex. It doesn't need to be, this big gigantic thing. It doesn't need to be, this over the top crazy art. It just needs to show us a simple but yet nice story, and I thought that this one did a good job of conveying that simple, nice story. And I sort of liked too how it felt kind of like the 1950s a little bit, with the way everybody was dressing, and I kind of liked too how they made it black and white, and only her lipstick was red. I thought that was a nice touch to it. Um, the female lead's lips were the only thing that was colored. Um, and I like how they kind of, show you how the mundaneness, it shows you, and again, the black and white kind of shows you just the kind of mundaneness, just going through life, and then suddenly you meet someone and it kind of colors up your world, so to speak. So I kind of like those little subtle things that it put in there. So yeah, I think it was very enjoyable, and I liked how they sort of showcased something that I think is just somehow and sometimes a part of life. So, and how it's revolved around romantic love. So, I think that's really ultimately all I can say when it comes to my personal favorite couple animated shorts. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say about them. I'm sure there's a tons of others that either I haven't seen or that I have not mentioned on this list that people probably would like to share. And I would be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say in regards to this topic. But I think that's ultimately all I can say. But again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.